Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here today. It's the 8th, and have some updates for you, several related to our city council meeting that we had last night. Before I get into those, we will have new numbers that will be coming out later today. We do expect to see an increase, obviously, in our numbers again. And I just want to remind you, I was on the radio this morning and they were asking about the community's response to date and how we're doing with slowing the spread in the city of Sioux Falls. And there's really a handful of things that we're doing. And I just want to remind everyone that between the governor's EO for Minnehaha and Lincoln counties, between her broader EO, which is for the entirety of the state, for the city's ordinances that we've put into place, for the mayoral proclamation that I put in place, we have kind of a multifaceted approach, all of which have led to what I feel is a pretty high level of compliance in our city. And so we're continuing looking at the efficacy of those and determining what additional measures need to be taken to ensure that we have good mitigation that's happening in our city. But I just want to take a moment off the top to thank our residents of the city, because there is a seriousness by which majority of our population has approached this issue. They're taking it seriously, and they're really doing a good job. So thank you to the residents of the city for all the work you've done thus far in helping to slow the spread of COVID. We had several pandemic-related ordinances before our city council last night, all of which were second readings. We had a second reading of ordinance 2820, which is to extend the ordinance that was adopted by our Board of Health and then approved by our city council in March. That ordinance was enacted to regulate retail businesses that promote public gatherings. And to ensure they have 10 patrons or less on their property at any one time. The council did approve extending that again. So again, no businesses are mandated to be closed at this time in our city, but there are certain rules and laws that they have to abide by under that ordinance 2820. I'm not going to get into the details of that, as you know that already. We also had a second reading to adopt the allocation of some unappropriated funds to the One Sioux Falls Fund. That also passed 8-0 to have the city put $1 million of some unappropriated funds into that fund. So we now have about $3.2 million in that fund. We have north of 2,500 applications of people who have applied to that fund in order to get relief for housing challenges they're under. So if you just do quick math at 2,500 people and let's say $1,000 per person, that fund's about out. Obviously, we haven't given that all away. We've approved several hundred of those applicants already, but you can see where the needs are great. The needs are growing every day on that fund, and we're also having continued conversations on other strategies we can do in the city to ensure people stay in their housing at this time. We also had a second reading of an ordinance that will allow for some changes to our garbage hauling, which will also make things more efficient to deal with some staffing shortages. I'm going to let Mark Cotter, our Director of Public Works, speak about that, and I'll invite him forward at this time to share that.
Thank you for having me today. Thank you, Mayor Paul Tenhagen. Let me frame up this item for you. So one of the most essential services that we have behind water and wastewater is having really good, responsible solid waste collection. It's a critical service not to get our garbage and recycling picked up on the basis of keeping our properties clean and healthy. The garbage haulers are anticipating some staffing impacts as a result of COVID-19, and we started to work together on what's one thing that we could do to really ensure that we can still have this essential service carry on. It takes them about 40% more time for them to walk up a driveway, take a garbage can, bring it down, dump it, and take it back. One of the things that they said is if we could do a temporary change with our ordinances to allow their customers to bring their garbage cans to the curb, that'd be a significant savings, and they would be able to still maintain this essential service even with reduced workforce. So that's one of the things we wanted to bring before the City Council. And so last night, City Council did support that. It's an emergency ordinance. related to COVID-19. It will be in place as long as this emergency is, or until such time that the council either repeals it or extends it. So just wanted to make sure we frame up that item for you, and I'll turn it back over to Mayor Paul Tenhagen. Thanks.
All right, and just to wrap things up today, I just want to reinforce the governor's call to action, which was proclaimed today, National Day of Prayer. Not National Day, a day of prayer in our state. So want to invite anyone in our city and in our state who would feel comfortable doing so to pray for our first responders, pray for our healthcare professionals, your elected officials who are challenged with some difficult decisions, not only on the local level, but the state, obviously the federal level right now. Your spiritual, mental, physical well-being are all very important right now and all need to be taken care of. So join the governor today and say a prayer for those people who are helping with the COVID relief, but also those who are being affected by it, not only physically, but through job loss, through the challenges in the economy or anything else. So with that, I would open it up for any questions from myself, from Mark, and Health Director Jill Franken is here as well.
Has the city identified any hotspots in Minnehaha County?
There are hotspots that we have identified and we're working with. And so when those are identified, they're identified by the state. And then we work with the State Department of Health on those to ensure what mitigation strategies are being done within the parameter of whatever that hotspot may be. So there are certain areas that we do see, I guess, more spread of COVID than in other areas.
Can you be more specific on those places, I guess?
You know, there is a spot in Minnehaha County that we're working with very closely with the state. I'm not going to name a business or an organization, but we are working with one employer specifically that is working around the clock to ensure that their employees have the right mitigation tactics and the right hygiene, personal hygiene, sanitary hygiene practices in place to curb the spread there.